Hi, I'm Stephanie Itimi. I'm currently the CEO and founder of Seidea, which is a social enterprise focused on helping Black and minority ethnic women into cybersecurity. And I'm also a PhD student at Royal Holloway University. So my career began, I would say, in 2014. I had the opportunity of doing the BBC work experience, and that was specifically in the BBC Africa department. And at that time, I was thinking, how do I start? I was about 19. How do I kind of fit or show my skills in this big organization? And they had this thing called Africa Fashion Week coming up. And luckily, I had some previous experience working with some friends and also some African fashion brands. So I was able to kind of bring that PR modeling experience to that role. And I think that's when they saw, I guess, my talent with social media. So they called me back for a freelance role at a time that I think was quite profound. It was during the BBC Ebola pandemic, which is similar to how we are now. I think the issue that was happening at that time is that in West Africa, there was a lot of fake news, especially on the WhatsApp platform. And if you're in a pandemic, like having fake news and people not knowing what to do is absolutely the worst thing. So they were trying to tackle that by giving accurate news. So they called me up, I was at uni at that time, and I was just really excited that they thought of me for this opportunity. And with that role, it was, them asking people in West Africa or abroad wider that, if you're interested in joining our WhatsApp group, please text, subscribe to this particular number. And then my role was to then, collect the information from Medical Sans Frontier, WHO, and UNICEF, and then condensing them into like short news, bite size, and send it to these different WhatsApp groups. I think it's one of like the biggest, or I guess my most profound moment in my career, because it grew to 16,000 members in West Africa. And it was much larger for those who were not in that kind of danger zone at that time. So after that, I think I graduated. I had the opportunity of going into civil service. So my first role was a policy graduate scheme, and I worked in digital transformation. So it was looking at the legal implications from the transformation of paper forms to online forms. So I was looking at issues like digital literacy, the lack of it. How do I ensure that, people with disabilities, accessibilities, or people who just don't have that connection with the government or have a great relationship with that specific government department, how do we ensure that they understand the new process? And from there, I had to do a risk register, which, GDPR was coming around that time. So it was all about, assessing like how are templates, were there any areas that we needed improvement, doing a risk register for that, and then creating a report of things that we need to do. And part of it was also me teaching people data protection. And that landed me into my, I guess, one of my favorite or life-changing roles, which was in intelligence. And that was me assessing modern slavery, human trafficking, online child sexual exploitation, and how does it affect the UK border. So that allowed me, I would say, to kind of see the scarier side of cybersecurity, because, we're on internet sometimes, we don't understand the dangers or really how wide the danger is. And I think that's what kind of led me into researching more into cybersecurity, but also ensuring that I give education on how women, especially women from minority groups, can be safe online. And then from there, I went on to work for a local council, looking at smart cities, partnership. And I think with that, I got to work with a university. And then it kind of reminded me that I actually miss academia. And then from there, I started my current PhD at Royal Holloway. My inspiration for Seidea was so because of the digital literacy program, I kind of started something in my local area. I'm one of those people that I'm kind of a chatterbox. So I like to ask people questions, especially at that time I was doing my master's in global economic policy and governance. So I had some chat, and this woman was telling me how she works in care and how she's unable to kind of like move to a managerial role because she doesn't have Microsoft Excel skills. And from there, I realized that actually a lot of women of color were facing the same problem. So I literally did an ad, put it on my local library bulletin, and we had about 12 or 13 women show up. And I think from there, it was kind of like me engaging with women from minority groups. And at that time, I was also then working in intelligence and kind of like looking at the cybersecurity issues. And I was like, there's such a gap. Like in my department, I was the only woman in my team specifically. And then in the whole department, I was the only Black person, or you say minority person. And that made me think, if I'm working on this particular area, which has some adjacent levels with what's happened on the internet, and I'm speaking for various groups, this is not right. We have a huge problem in cybersecurity. I think the UK government recent reports show that 15% of the industry in the UK are women, and 16% of the industry is, people from minority groups. And then when you then collate those two groups, it's just such a small number. So what drove me is a lot of the women also were asking me, like, we want to do what you're doing, we want to leave care, we want to transition. And then I realized that they couldn't, because a lot of the cybersecurity events were in central London, and it wasn't accessible if they're living in the outskirts, or if they have, caring responsibilities with their children or their parents. So I decided to create this organization to make it accessible and to kind of demystify cybersecurity, because when they think about cybersecurity, it's like hackers or men in hoodies and you can't see their face. And it's to show that cybersecurity, it's more than that. Like, you can look like someone who works in cybersecurity. And we started working with experts who came on our platform. I think if you go to our website, you see a bank, and I'm so grateful for every single one of them. And they just shared, their expertise, their career journey, what skills are needed, what certifications, just showing these women, yes, you can also transition into the cybersecurity field too. And I think for me, the passion is just to diversify the industry, but also to teach them skills of how they can be safe online. And if I can encourage more women from minority groups to enter the sector, then we wouldn't have issues like, I think recently with the whole facial recognition and how it doesn't, really work on, I think it was Black women or trans people. Like, how do I ensure that these groups are sitting on those decision, making tables where they can influence and share the experience and hopefully create inclusive tech? So I would say, like, all those characteristics, or I'll say element, kind of formed me, or formed the passion that I have to kind of drive Seidea forward. I think with Seidea, what we do to help Black and minority ethnic women is that we focus on the very beginning of, like, their career journey. So we start with coaching. So it's speaking to them and asking them questions like, where do you see yourself? What areas or domains of cybersecurity are you interested in? What are your current skills? What are the gaps? How can we create a strategy plan to kind of help you fill those gaps, whether that's through training, through getting a certification, or a work experience? And that's kind of a one-to-one coaching relationship that we have with them. Then we have industry events that I kind of alluded to earlier, which is where we get experts to come and talk to them, whether it's about like how they got into cybersecurity, or whether it's even recruitment firms kind of telling them, what are they looking for when they're approaching or looking to employ people. And then we have our podcast, which is more like focusing on staying safe online. And like I said, that's something I'm really passionate about. And again, we do that with experts. So we've spoken about issues about IoTs and how it's related to domestic violence, and how, to ensure that you're not a victim to phishing emails, or that you don't overshare on social media. And then we're actually working on a diversity and inclusion training program, where we want to be working with employers to actually teach them, how do you attract women from diverse groups? How do you, retain them? Because as we're seeing, I think KPMG did a recent report, and it showed that a lot of women, especially Black women, are actually leaving the sector faster than they're joining. So it's how do you retain these groups within your company as well, and grow them. And then finally, now we're developing a demystifying cybersecurity training program, where we're hoping to work with schools, actually saying, you can look like someone who works in cybersecurity, and starting from the younger ages, for them to actually think about cybersecurity. But with that, we're looking at schools in specific areas that have a high ethnic minority population, so we can actually go to them and say, this is what you can do, these are the different careers, and yes, if you do want to enter, you can as well. I love kids, and I think you can learn so much from children. So what even happened with like my coding journey was I had the opportunity of getting a scholarship with Code First Girls. So that's how I got introduced to coding. And when I did the program, I was kind of like upset, because I didn't have that opportunity to learn those skills, or to be exposed to industry and understand, how do you navigate the tech industry. And for someone who did, ICT for A-levels and GCSE, I understand that there are huge and massive gaps where I grew up. up. So I decided, in my local library, let me just start this up. And I saw that Google has this curriculum where they already have pre-recorded videos. I just need to guide the students. So what I did was to like get them speakers to come and talk about their careers so that they can see women who look like them and the type of skills and types of jobs are available in tech. So that focuses on Black and minority ethnic girls as well. So like BAME girls aged 9 to 16, and we teach them how to code, but we also teach them the gift of storytelling, because I think that's the best way to sell yourself or to talk about your skills, especially at such a young age. So what we do is, as they're learning the different programming languages, we teach them how to like tell the story of what they've done, so that if they were to do a work experience or if they were to share it with somebody else, they're able to kind of communicate that skill. So that's pretty much how it started. We're in our 4th year, and so far we've been able to train 65 girls, which I've been just elated to do. Normally, I think it was our first session we had 24, but the last session was massive because obviously COVID and it was online. So we had more girls from different boroughs and different areas in the UK as well. I have been so lucky to do the CDT program at Royal Holloway. And it's, like you said, it's 4 years. And the first year we do different courses where we learn more about the cybersecurity industry, especially since a lot of us are coming from multidisciplinary backgrounds. And then our second year is when we start to like actually think about what research we want to do and start working on our thesis. So right now, I would say I'm quite interested in like the gig economy and the data privacy issues that are within that sector. I think obviously now with COVID, we've seen the rise of like Deliveroo and delivery, courier services. And it's kind of understanding like, what are the potential dangers of that? Or even with like productivity tools and what is like, how does it make the employee feel about them being kind of like monitored in a certain way. So I'm really excited about researching that at the moment, but obviously I'm still in my first year. My second year, I'm definitely going to look at more stuff and probably have a different research. I would say like mentors have been such a huge help to me. The reason why I would say that, again, speaking especially from someone who comes from a minority background, is sometimes when you're a new grad starting the work industry, you don't really know the to-dos and don'ts or, how to even approach. And I think with my first role in government, I had a mentor called Bisola, which I talked about, and she basically taught me even how to write emails. And you're thinking like something so basic, but I didn't know the right way to communicate about, what type of language was being used, what were the acronyms, how do I, as a young woman, communicate myself or think about how I can navigate the workplace. So I'll say a mentor is great because it's somebody who has already gone ahead of you. And they can like share their experiences and they can tell you, this is what I did wrong. These were like my mistakes, so that you can learn from it. And I think that's very invaluable, even from someone in any race, how they can kind of like learn from the experience of somebody else. And with my second mentor, Ibukun, I was, like I said, my journey into cybersecurity has been a very non-conventional way, I would say. And she being someone who kind of worked her way, now she's a vice president of like a investment company, kind of working on cybersecurity. She really taught me, this is how I can enter the industry. And that's kind of even the same principle that I use with Seidea, is like, these were like the lessons I've learned and I've gotten from all these experts and all these mentors who have helped me along the way. And this is how, you could also help somebody else. So I definitely think that mentorship is important from a mentee perspective. And I think from being a mentor of Makeda Foundation is a little bit different, because I didn't talk about this, but like even in my past life, I've kind of also worked in development industry. So I've been in Uganda where I was like a business consultant for a couple of months working with DFID. And I guess those experience with me actually starting Seidea and already having like a failed startup, you would say, I know I have a few business lessons that I have to give. And with Makeda Foundation, that's more working with businesses in Africa and startups and kind of telling them, these are the do's and don'ts. This is what I've learned. This is where I feel like you can kind of enhance or work on your product. So I think also giving back as a mentor is, it's also invaluable because you learn. I do think that as you're helping the mentee is also helping you and kind of letting you know things that you didn't even think about. So it's definitely, to me, a sharing of perspectives. I think one of the questions I get all the time is, I want to work in cybersecurity. And then when I say, okay, which part of cybersecurity? I don't know. So I would say like the first advice is research different domains within cybersecurity and think about which one aligns to your skill set. You know, which one do you resonate with? Do you feel like you can do this for a period of time? And then research the different roles within that domain that you want to work in. And then think about, you know, what are they asking for? What are the skills that you're seeing, you know, in the trends when you're researching? What are the certifications you're looking for? Then think about, you know, what are my current skills? Where, you know, and then look at like the skill gaps between what you're asking for, what you have and what you don't have. Then create a strategy to fill in those gaps. So it could be work experience, it could be, you know, paying for a course, it could be certification, and then work towards that. Then I will always say, like, reach out to companies. I remember when I was like in sixth form and even like my first year of uni, I just used to send loads of cold emails to companies saying, hey, do you have a work experience program? I'm really interested. I really like your company. You know, do that. You never know. The worst that they can say it's no, but they could say yes. And then if that doesn't work, also look for freelance opportunities. Like right now, we are literally in the age of the gig economy where you can sell your skills online. So feel free to like build your portfolio by getting those freelance opportunities and be confident. Realize that everything is a journey. And sometimes it's not a quick fix, but if things doesn't work out, you know, feel free to pivot and to change your mind about things. So those would be my key advice, I would say, for people who are looking to get into cybersecurity. Obviously, I would say Seidea, because we have so much content and resources to help. But also, I think more for like the technical skills, because I think we focus more on like the career and like the soft skills and like creating a strategy for you. So if you really want those hard skills, I would recommend Cybery. Right now in February, actually, they're doing 9 free courses, so check them out. Also, techexam.net has some like certification preparation community that you kind of ask if you're revising for a certification. Udemy is a great resource. I mean, they're always doing sales, so you can definitely get like a certification course on Udemy. And YouTube, like, you know, they say like YouTube is the university of YouTube, and I think that's very invaluable. And also your different communities, like even if you feel like my community doesn't work for you, like, because I do have men who are from ethnic minority groups saying, oh, when are you going to do stuff for men? Like there are so many other communities. There's Black in Cybersecurity, which is I think American organization, but there are also various, you know, research, look out to kind of see what other communities that you can kind of connect with. And with these things, it's pretty much, you know, your tribe will find you. The more you look out, the more you go to events, the more you discover your tribe, and you kind of create your own network of people to reach out to and ask questions.